Bacchanal and water. Bacchanal and water.
All right, and that's what we're going to be talking about, all this bacchanal with water. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Now Morning Show on TTT. I'm Natalie Legore, and I'm back after a nice little short spell. All right, it's just about 20 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock. And we do have the Minister of Public Utilities with us this morning, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez. Good morning to you, Minister.
Good morning, Natalie. Good morning to your team at TTT, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago and the world.
Yes, so nice to have you here with us on the Now Morning Show.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite morning programs. As a matter of fact, if I don't tune into TTT, it's very difficult to tune into other channels.
You see, that's what we appreciate, you know? We really are excited about comments like that. So stay with us. Stay with us. Thank you so much for choosing us, because, you know, it's nice when you have that kind of support, especially when you're considered a state entity. It's nice to have the support from people who are a part of the government, you know. So, Minister, we invited you here this morning because we have all this bacchanal with water. And my first question to you is, isn't it the disconnection drive, wouldn't it be a policy position of the government?
No, it is not a policy position of the government. As a matter of fact, the policy position of the government at this point in time, that is very high on the government's priority as we move towards the end of this financial year and into the new financial year, is the transformation of the Water and Sewage Authority. The Prime Minister, as Prime Minister, when he appointed me as Minister of Public Utilities, we have always leveled with the country that one of our priority items in this new term is the transformation of the Water and Sewage Authority. So that is our priority at this point in time.
But isn't that a part of the transformation, though? Because I know with the transformation, we're looking at ways that we can, you know, cut the subsidy for WASA, you know, from the government. And if you're doing a disconnection drive, isn't it fair to say that this was a part of the policy of the government?
No, because the collection of rates under the Water and Sewage Authority Act is a matter for the management of WASA. It is regarded as an operational matter. The Minister of Public Utilities certainly cannot direct the management of WASA to go and cut any or disconnect any particular citizen in whatever area as the case may be. These are the normal day-to-day functions of management, and you expect management to manage
right,
on a daily basis. So there are matters that are operational, they are matter of policies, and so we have to make that distinction. And therefore, the issue with respect to, or the decision rather, to commence a disconnection drive in Trinidad and Tobago was one that was started by management. No approval was sought from the board of directors, and no approval.
And should they have done that? Should they have sought approval from the board?
I think they should have sought. They should have gone to the board and seek the necessary approval, especially given the fact that we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and water is essential in this fight. All right, the access to water. We're encouraging citizens to wash their hands, etc. So therefore, any disconnection drive in the midst of a pandemic, I think it is one that you have to be extremely careful about, and therefore seek the necessary approval. And I would dare say, especially given the situation that we're in now as a country, at least the Minister of Public Utilities should have been made aware, so that I could have given my perspective on the matter. So I think it was ill-timed. I'm not against any state agency collecting their rates, because that is what is necessary for the organization to function. But we've just came out from Parliament a short while ago, and WASA was allocated over $500 million to pay salaries, etc. The issue of debts and rates, outstanding rates owed to the utility company, it is not a current one. The report of the Cabinet Subcommittee, talked about the huge amount of receivables and payables by the Water and Sewage Authority. So it is not a recent thing. And therefore, these matters and these things should have been taken into consideration before the commencement of any disconnection drive. And say, when you go out in the public and you say that we're going to commence a disconnection drive and you actually start, then obviously the reaction to that would be people coming out to pay their bills to make sure that they don't face the prospect of of disconnection. And it would have gone, and obviously it will go against the grain of the messaging that the government is sending and the Ministry of Health is sending towards the population, which is to limit human activity. So, you know, you see videos of long lines of people attempting to access the various WASA centers around the country. This is exactly what we don't want at this point in time. And these are the matters that that management should have thought about carefully.
So what happens with management now that went ahead with a operation, then an operational procedure, went ahead with this and did not seek the approval of the board or of the minister?
What happened to them?
Yeah.
Well, last week, Friday, we had a meeting with the board. And we met with them to discuss the state of transformation, the pace at which we are going. And we took the opportunity to raise the issue of the disconnection drive.
Right.
We asked Dr. Seeley to more or less explain, you know, what led to the disconnection drive, whether certain things would have been taken into consideration. And there it was confirmed that the entire board was not aware of it. And we expressed how we felt about it. And I think coming out of that meeting, the disconnection drive was discontinued. What happens to the management as to what, whether they face any consequences? Certainly that is not for the Minister of Public Utilities, because if I do so, I can be accused of ministerial interference. So I have to be very, very careful about that. But of course, as minister, I took careful note of the manner in which this was handled, and it will be taken and it will be dealt with accordingly.
Right, and the United National Congress believes that there's some political thing going on because of the areas that were chosen for the disconnection drive. Why these areas? Why Shogunas, Baratari, and San Juan?
Well, again, I cannot. The minister is not involved in these activities. The minister is not involved in directing the management of WASA on these operational issues as to where to go and disconnect, who to disconnect, at what level of, the people who owe the organization, at what level you should target them. These are matters that are not discussed, and I haven't asked the executive director what led to the disconnection in some areas around the country. But of course, this is typical UNC behavior where there's always the cry of discrimination, being targeted, and all these things. So I don't get involved in that because to me that is normal UNC behavior. To always paint the picture that the government is always influenced by racism and classism and all these things. So I try my best not to be pulled into that argument, and I will only enter into that fray when I think that I have to. In this particular case, I don't think that it warrants my attention in that regard, but it is normal UNC behavior, in my view.
Okay, so then what happens now? The disconnection drive has been discontinued, but is it just for a time? Is it that this will just, go until the pandemic is managed? Because I don't know that it will ever be over. We might just move from pandemic to endemic at some point. Yeah. But what of the disconnection drive? Because if we're looking at, reforming and transforming WASA, isn't this something that will be back on the board?
It will be back on the board because the debts owed to WASA is a very, very serious matter. It contributes to the dysfunction in the organization, as was itemized in the Cabinet Subcommittee report. But again, we believe that the transformation is going to take care of that, because there are numerous issues affecting the authority. You just cannot pick out one and go after it, because perhaps it might be self-serving to some that you go after this particular matter. But I've told the executive director and the board that the transformation of WASA, it is going to deal with all the various and the myriad issues affecting the authority. All right, so therefore, their attention should be focused, laser focused on the transformation, and at the appropriate time, we are going to deal with the issue of the debts owed to the authority.
And I found it was an anomaly at this point for WASA to be disconnecting people when WASA can't even provide water for so many people who need it at this time.
And that is a valid concern, but I also, in response to that, Natalie, we cannot disconnect the both issues. And I always try to remind citizens, the two issues are directly related. The debts owed by its customers and its inability to provide water and an efficient water supply to the country. Because the extraction of water, the production of water, the transmission of water, the distribution of water, the maintenance of all your plants and the equipment, these matters are very, very expensive. They cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And if citizens do not play their part to pay their rates diligently and decently, then the utility company's ability to provide this essential service will obviously be negatively impacted because it requires the funds in order for it to operate. So when you complain that WASA is not providing an efficient service, yes, that is true. But there are many issues that are contributing to its inability to provide an efficient service. And one of those issues is the fact that so many of our citizens do not prioritize the payment of their WASA bills.
Yeah, that you have a point there. You have a point there. But I think, you know, when you listen to the citizens and hear what they have to say is that, you know, most of the time it comes down to we can't even get any water. You know, we're in a pandemic. We still can't get any water. And these may be, you know, these concerns may be from people who are paying their bill, who, you know, who are doing what they're supposed to do. And there's so many areas. I think the other day we had some protests in Belmont because they weren't getting water for how many days.
Easier.
So especially that we're in a pandemic, what is the Water and Sewage Authority doing to ensure that there is a constant supply of water to people who really need it, which is all the citizens?
All the citizens. So I think generally the authority has done very well in this pandemic, despite its difficulties, and of course WASA's difficulties. You know, they are age old. They're much older than I am, and that's the reason why we have to tackle them.
Yeah.
So I think the authority has done well, reasonably well, to provide, you know, a stable supply of water to the country, despite the challenges, despite the fact that we have pockets of communities around Trinidad and Tobago that are not getting an efficient water supply. Their water supply is below 3 days a week, and that is where we are tackling. We are putting together a water stabilization and improvement program that is going to be deployed. I'm going to go to cabinet to get approval. We've already started our discussions with the IDB. We are going to enter into a technical cooperation agreement so that we can get access to the necessary funding to commence this water stabilization and improvement program, where we're going to, where the country would see that the focus is to maximize our ground and surface water all over Trinidad and Tobago, to localize the supply of water. Because I'll tell you this, one of the things that I recognized when I came into the ministry is that you have water being moved from one location to very far location. And in that transmission process, the amount of leaks that you have in the line, by the time it reaches the customers, you would have lost millions of gallons of water. Focus was not placed on localizing your supply of water, and that is what the Water Stabilization and Improvement Program is going to be focused on, localizing the support. Get your wells, get your intakes in the various communities, allow those local supply to supply, or sources rather, to supply the areas so that you wouldn't have the situation that you're faced with today, where water is moved from one area in the country to some far other areas. And by the time it reaches those customers, the pressure is very low. You would have lost a lot in transmission, and those areas that you call on the extremities, they are impacted by a low supply. So,
but Minister, this idea of the water stabilization plan, you know, how soon will we see that, you know, in place? Because I know a lot of times that there are plans, there are things that the government wants to do, but, you know, we hear about it, you know, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. and we just keep hearing the same thing being repeated, but we're not seeing things, you know, moving along. So how soon can we see this water stabilization plan,
And
you know, taking place?
yeah, so I intend to take it before cabinet in less than a month's time for approval. And once I get the approval, once the plan gets the approval of the cabinet, in about 6 weeks' time or less than 2 months, the country will see a clear roadmap over the next year or 2 years, where the water supply situation all over the country, every single constituency, every single community, both in Trinidad and Tobago, will be positively impacted by that water stabilization and improvement program. And whilst we focus on that, the transformation of the Water and Sewage Authority will also be taking place. So we are doing two things at the same time, simultaneously. The transformation of the Water and Sewage Authority and pursuing a list of programs to get more water into the grid so that we can positively impact the water supply situation all over Trinidad and Tobago, with the aim of getting a 24/7 water supply, or very close to every single community in Trinidad and Tobago.
That would be so, so good. I'm sure that the citizens listening to this would be like, yes, if we can have that 24/7, you know, supply of water, it would be absolutely phenomenal. But you said 1 to 2 years. So is it that at the end of the 2 year, we can see everybody having that water supply?
Positive impact all over the country. It is going to be very strategic because we have examined those areas where, I'll tell you this, just last week or 2 weeks ago, I got a report, a major hydrological report that concluded that we have 13 million gallons of water per day in a huge aquifer located in somewhere in central Trinidad, in the Freeport area. There's a huge aquifer that is located there that has the capacity to produce 13 million gallons of water per day. So that means an extra 13 million gallons of water in this particular area that can give the people of Freeport and surrounding communities 24/7 water supply. The impact of that is that you're not going to get, it's going to remove the dependence on the Caroni water treatment plant, where 40 million gallons of water leaves that plant to go down to feed areas in central Trinidad and South Trinidad. So if you get, and when we get the local supply in the central area and in the southern area, you will immediately reduce your dependence on Caroni water treatment plant, which you can now take to send to the east-west corridor, positively impacting Laventille, Mova, Port of Spain area, Cocorite, and what have you. So that's what I'm saying. It has to be done strategically. Localize your supply. Reduce your dependence on Caroni water treatment plant so that the plant can take care of those communities in its direct location. And once you get additional water, because the water doesn't have to go all along the way to Siparia and to Penal and La Brea, etc., those areas have water. They are water rich. And therefore, what the country is going to see is in that water stabilization and improvement program is the extraction of the water from those particular areas to supply these communities. And as you do
the surrounding communities, but even from Caroni to Laventille, isn't that still, you know, too far, as you mentioned before, that when we have to be supplying water to places way down yonder, you know, that you may lose so many gallons along the way.
And that is the problem. So the water reaches all along the way to West Moorings and Cocorite from Caroni. Caroni is located behind the old Piaco International Airport. Why are you taking water from the Caroni water treatment plant from Piaco and transmitting that water all along the way to Cocorite? And by the time
so in the stabilization plan, then that's something that's going to be addressed.
It is a major plank of what we are going to address, because in Cocorite, West Moorings, you have a huge aquifer down in Tucker Valley. The water can simply be moved from Tucker Valley and be brought into the Cocorite area, even parts of eastern Port of Spain as well. So those parts of Port of Spain that are relying on Caroni water, they can now get their supply, their rich supply from Tucker Valley. And therefore, you continue to reduce and to reduce the stretch of Caroni water. And by so doing, areas in Port of Spain and Laventille and San Juan and certain parts of the east-west corridor will have more water to get from the Caroni water treatment plant. So that's the objective. The Caroni water treatment plant produces 75 million gallons of water per day, and the reality is that the plant is too stretched. It is going all along the way to Labre, all up to West Moorings and Cokery, all up to Lady Chancellor and St. Anne's. It's just absolutely crazy. No one runs a network like that. So the water stabilization program, and the reality is that the fact is that you have the available water in those areas where you do not have to take the water all the way from Caroni. So you focus on localizing your sources. You're going to improve the supplies in those areas, and the water from Caroni, the 75 million gallons of water per day, will now be distributed to the communities located around that plant.
Well, Minister, I look forward to this water stabilization plan, taking it to Cabinet next month for approval. And I'm hoping that you said within a year to 2 years, that in 2023, if I'm here and I'm speaking to you, that we're still not talking about, you know, getting the water stabilization plan in effect. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for speaking with us this morning, as usual, and we look forward to the improvements at the Water and Sewage Authority.
Thank you very much for having me, Natalie. Thanks very much to your competent team. Continue doing the great work, and I love the Now Morning Show.
Thank you so much. Minister Marvin Gonzalez there talking to us, and of course, looking forward to this water stabilization plan where we can have 24/7 supply to the communities right across Trinidad and Tobago. We take a break and we'll be back with you.